taboo that has prevented or is preventing many women from crossing the River Offing. Yes, the River Offing. It's a Tuesday, and Tuesdays the women are not supposed to cross the River Offing. That's for many women and girls.
According to the girls,
now this will mean that for the many women and girls who live across or along the River Offing, they cannot cross the river, not to go to school and not to engage in any commercial or economic activity. We'll be engaging. This taboo has been in place for many decades. We'll be engaging some women rights advocates, we'll be engaging some NGOs as well as the ministry government officials to get to understand what this taboo is and what we can do to get rid of it. Now, today is also World Teachers Day. And if you can read whatever is on your screen right now, you need to thank your teacher. And we'll be speaking with some teachers to get to help them, to get to celebrate the day. Also on the show, we'll be bringing you the newspapers. And on the front page of the Daily Graphic this morning, Pokuase interchange burgled. We'll be bringing you the details. To stay tuned in. And Facebook was also out. Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram. They were out for 6 hours.
Good morning and welcome to the AM News here on the AM Show. And our very first story, residents of Santase Apre in the Ashanti region embarked on a protest Monday morning to register their displeasure at the deplorable nature of their roads. Now, they say the poor road network within the community is affecting their daily activities. The irate residents are therefore calling on the government to ensure the contractor on the road returns to site. Love FM's Chrissy Deborah has more in this report.
Death of a driver after last Saturday's downpour. Residents indicate he died shortly at the hospital after crashing into a gully along the stretch.
President
Akufo-Addo, during his second inaugural speech, assured Ghanaians 2021 will be his second year of rose. However, these residents indicated the promise has not materialized in their community. A resident, Emmanuel Ajako, claims a woman in labor nearly lost her life due to the bad nature of the road.
It is an eyesore. If you look at this state of this Santase Apre road, it is a stretch to the Obuasi. It is a stretch to Nkaria. It is also a stretch to, let's say, Sunyane and its virus. But unfortunately, this road has been left aside. It has become a death trap. Just recently, two cars have fallen into this gutter. The gutter was made by the contractor, Kuvijob, and it has been neglected for the past 8 months. And that has led to that accident that caused just recently. The man who was involved in the accident died just 2 days ago at a whole person hospital. A pregnant woman also suffered the same thing and had miscarriage because of our road. Drivers are refusing to commute this road because of this poor road network. They are charging us exorbitant prices.
The angry residents mounted blockades during the protest, preventing drivers from using the stretch. This led to a confrontation between them and police officers who visited the area to instill order. Meanwhile, site engineer with Kuvijob Company Limited, Frank Tay, indicated the road construction stalled due to the recent rains.
Yeah, we came here about a month ago to fill the place so that it would be more trouble. But unfortunately, the day we brought the machines, they are even still there. I can take you there and you have a look at it. The very day we came, the following day it rained heavily. Now, when it rains, you can't do your graveling because all the gravel material are wet. And when it happens like that and you place that on the pavement, you are just going to destroy the road, whereby cars, no vehicle can move. But as for this very particular place, as soon as possible, we need to fix it. And hopefully before the close of the week, we are going to fix this place. so that this very death trap will not be there anymore.
From the Santasia Pre-Stretch reporting for JoyNews, my name is Kwesi Debra.
Now, the chief of Kontinansi in the Bosomtwi district of the Ashanti region wants the president to ensure the construction of the Kumasi-Bosomtwi road continues after his visit. Construction of the road had stalled since it was started in 2018, with contractors occasionally returning to site. Berima Amankwa Eduban Ababio attested to the return of the contractor in the past few days. He says unless the necessary action is taken, the road contractors will pack out. Nana Yaojima followed the president on his third day's visit to the Ashanti region.
Nana Akufo-Addo paid a courtesy call on the Asantehene as part of his tour of the Ashanti region.
And they do no de Gusupa. I'm so Kumasi Kwana Sanjuma Kwan, you who sa wo brand me bresoda. See here and say, Yamamu Salsuna Yama, a war, yeah, 1D, 1F, yeah, airporty, no one be called under Yaba. Now the other things, Bankra delay Kakraba, home affair, say, Yahuano, be quiet, bitch me a farmer, I don't know, so there are several projects.
Asantehene believes regular visits to project sites will help the president to accurately update himself on the state of progress.
Yebeka dear Daniel Cancho. Now, why would PSA Nakuhuna who says, no Nakuhunia? There have been so equal yeno, and my wretched says, would you Juma Papanso.
Through such visits, appropriate decisions will be taken to the benefit of the government. The Asantehene, however, wants the president to ensure development in the Ashanti region in delivering of its mandate.
Never drew hey. Sanjamamo dear. And near me, Piacoso Papa. And Nunti, it was the Atiaka Movia, it would give you almost obey Yamai. As a China said, you could to a cajon, a Jana Breno Nancy was here DBA, and Yamimo and Nisa Faculty to Uncle for near for Bitua when you know it to Kwanza. And Zana the Akan watch it. I has idea Uno baby. I could go drown our honor or Sessa Jana or not.
As part of the visit, the president inspected progress of work at the Kumasi airport. The upgrade of the airport to international status is 77% complete and is expected to be completed by August next year. Project consultant Nana Ametepe says the existing airport building would be demolished when the new edifice is completed.
The project constitutes the terminal building, a new terminal building, which is about 12,000 square meters. And then we have the new network, which is coming into here, which is about 4 kilometers, dual carriage road, which will now has been on a traffic model to ensure that the anticipated passenger of 1 million throughput a year can be facilitated through this airport without traffic, both in and out. The current runway is 1.98 kilometers, and we are building 2.3. So the existing control tower height will not allow you to see the furthest extent of the runway, and hence there was a need to build this one, which also has more sophisticated equipment. And because the whole project includes airside work, which includes the areas where the existing terminal is, we need to migrate the airports from the terminal where it is and bring them here to function. And then that area will be demolished and to allow for the all the buildings to be done. So we believe that by come next year, August, this whole entire airport will be functional.
For JoyNews, Nana Yaojima, Kumasi.
The National Road Safety Authority has launched investigations into the spate of road crashes on the Konongo-Kumasi stretch of the main Kumasi-Accra Road. Ashanti Regional Director of the authority, Simbiat Wedu, said the upsurge in fatalities on the stretch calls for immediate attention. A call comes as 13 lives were lost in a gory accident at Ohining Kwanta near Konongo on Sunday night. Ohiming Teria has more for us in this report.
This is the scene of the accident, which claimed 13 lives here on Sunday evening. According to police, this particular stretch on the main Kumasi-Accra road is noted for fatal accidents. In the last 1 year, police say they've been called to this scene to manage at least 4 fatal accidents in which human lives have been lost.
The accident scene is littered with fresh pepper, some in bags, mixed with human blood and personal belongings spilled along the highway. The DAF truck is said to have first hit the rear of an articulated truck before veering off to the lane of an oncoming commercial bus, killing 13 of the 26 passengers on board. DSP Stephen Payeboa is the Konongo Divisional MTTD commander.
This cargo DAF truck was coming from Kumasi towards Accra. So on reaching a spot, he realized there was a vehicle ahead of him. And in order not to hit the back, he veered to the other lane, the opposite lane, and collided with an oncoming OE bus, which was also coming from Accra towards Kumasi. That caused the overspeeding and the wrongly overtaking caused the accident. In the bus, 26 passengers were on board together with the mate and the driver. So 13 people died on the spot.
9 out of 11 injured victims who were sent to nearby Konongo Udumasi Government Hospital have all been discharged. One of the victims has been referred to the Komfanoche Teaching Hospital. Some surviving victims tell JoyNews they were saved by divine intervention in their seat beds.
I was partly dozing, but I wasn't fully asleep. We passed Konongo. All I heard was a sudden crash on the car, and it was as if something was ripping the vehicle off. And the next thing I saw, we had fallen on our side of the vehicle. Apart from the God factor, the seatbelt saved me. I was wearing my seatbelt. Likewise, my colleague.
Till the bus ran into us, but the driver did his best by throwing the bus into the bush.
Konongo Divisional Commander Chief Superintendent Shaibu Abubakar Sadiq say is incensed at what he says is indiscipline among drivers on the road.
This is not a dual carriage, and we expect drivers to drive according to the rules of the road. If you look at where the accident occurred, it's a curve. It's a curve which does not expect a driver to overtake. But here we are, this very driver attempted to overtake, and then this is what we have seen. If this driver had taken his time with a little bit patience, this is an avoidable accident. 13 people have perished. People who are taking care of their families and wives and sisters are no more. Drivers flying on this road from Kumasi to Accra, when you are driving, you see drivers overtaking and facing opposing vehicles coming from the opposite direction, telling those drivers to get down and drive on the shoulders of the road, for them to give them a chance. This is unacceptable.
The National Road Safety Authority is equally concerned with increasing road crashes on the stretch. Ashanti Regional Director Sembiat Reju says the authority has launched investigations into the crashes.
It's terrible. It's worrying that all of a sudden 13 people have lost their lives through somebody's negligence. It's a cause for worry, especially on this stretch where we have been recording lots of crashes. And so we had to calm down and investigate into what went wrong, and then see how best we can put measures in place so that some of these crashes will be reduced going forward. I spoke to the divisional commander at Asante Achim, and he's ever ready for us to collaborate and work together. The only thing we are looking forward to is to get the support of commuters and the motorists.
From Konongo, for JoyNews, Ohimentewia reporting.
Sorry for that hitch. This is still the AM News. And the central regional town of British Commander has been thrown into a state of mourning following the drowning of 4 children on Saturday. Now, 6 children went swimming where community leaders say is an unauthorized place. 2 of them who were rescued have been treated and discharged. The Central Regional Police Command has begun investigation into the incident. Regional Police Commander DCOP Kojo Entry Taboo has visited the scene of the accident. Richard Kojo Nyako brings us more in this report.
The children went swimming on Saturday. 4 of them never returned. 2 of them likely were rescued, sent to the hospital, treated and discharged. AJ's son lost his 13-year-old son in Ogbafu in this unfortunate incident. He narrates it happened on their blind side. There was a funeral here. While we were there, we heard that some children had gone to swim and drowned. When we rushed there, I saw my son was part of the dead. Central Regional Police Commander DCOP Kojo Entry Taboo, who visited the scene with his personnel, gave more details about the incident.
4 of them got drowned. Yes, out of the 4, 2 were the bodies of 2 of them were retrieved that very Saturday, and then 1 was retrieved yesterday, washed ashore, and then the last one was also washed ashore today. Just before we came here, they are all students. 1 of them is 20 years. The remaining seems to be under 18 years. 1 is 15, 2 are 12 years, and then 1 is 19. 12 and 13, yes. 1 is 13, 1 is 12, 1 is 15, and then the oldest is 20 years.
He says a lot more education ought to be done on the COVID-19 restrictions to get the people informed.
Although I'm new here, but to my understanding, they have in place this thing, but at times there's some relaxation. If we look at it, if there's some relaxation in that system, then we will ensure that they do what they are supposed to do. They rigorously have to patrol the beaches to prevent such things from happening again. I think there's also the need for education, because according to some of the parents and then the assemblymen, most of these people are illiterate and they don't know anything about some of these measures put in place under the COVID Restriction Act.
And that's it for the AM News this morning, but the AM show continues with Israel Laye and myself. Stay tuned in.
All right, so good morning once again.
Good morning, good morning.
This is the AM show.
Yes, it is.
And we're back. And you can see us on Facebook.
Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back?
And WhatsApp is also.
You know what was really interesting about the whole thing was how Facebook took to Twitter to announce that they were having issues, you know, their rival company.
And then Twitter also used the opportunity to, okay, so sincere apologies to everyone impacted by outages of Facebook power services right now. We're experiencing networking issues and teams are working as fast as possible to debug and restore as fast as possible. Okay, but before then, there was another one where, you know, they went to, Twitter. So Facebook went to Twitter, all right. There was a previous one. And then there was a second one where, then Twitter put out a post and said, hello, literally everyone. Essentially,
wow.
Because of the outage, so the rival, everybody was on Twitter.
So hello, literally everyone.
And it's true, everybody was on Twitter.
These guys are so funny. You know what's really, really funny though? I actually didn't notice till about, I don't know. Somebody called me.
Is it the case that you were asleep?
I was awake. Somebody called me to say that they had been trying to send me information and they noticed it wasn't coming and they just realized there was
the outage.
There was the outage. That was when I noticed that WhatsApp wasn't working, and as for the rest, dear, I wasn't. I mean, you know, it's interesting because, and it always comes up, you know, with social media, that there's people who are very social media, and the people who are just, I don't really care, you know. So it was, I mean, I had a great afternoon. I was sitting outside in the house, you know, with my friends, just, you know, chatting and stuff. And it was nice because...
Well, you were chatting, and so...
But let me tell you what was funny, though. So this was a mixed group of people. So there were a couple of younger guys, you know, and when they noticed that social media was running, they started, you know, to kind of get uncomfortable. And so what are we supposed to do? You know, and it's like, wow, social media is not working. And my sister and I were like, you know what? This is life for us when we were growing up. There was no social media. So you sat around with the people that you love and you talked to them. And for me, honestly, it was so much better because I get social media fatigued.
Okay.
And it just gets too much, the impersonality and the, you know, information overload. And it's really nice to sit down with people you love. And because social media is not working, their phones are actually down and paying attention.
But every now and then they'll pick their phone and check if it's back.
No, I mean, I think at that point, everybody had given up. So, but it also talks about how it shows us how addicted we are to this.
Yeah, but there, you know, there are a whole lot of people to also depend on social media for business.
For work, of course, and that's
so
a totally
them,
different level. Yeah,
it was a big deal. I mean, and for us here at work, we also use WhatsApp to communicate.
I know. I was wondering, what's the news going to be like?
If the platform is off, you know, how do we communicate? But there was Telegram, and so people should begin to realize that you should have some backup. And
oh, hello, literally everyone. Wow, Twitter. That's so funny. Who came up with that tweet?
Well, yeah.
Hello, literally everyone. That's very interesting. Anyway, so that's our social media.
Yeah, and I put up a post too. I said so when Facebook got back, I was like, well, if you can read it, it means Facebook is back. You didn't die, did you?
No, I know, right? It also shows us that Mark Zuckerberg literally rules the world.
Yeah.
Yes.
He does.
He has a lot of power.
And then people are beginning to have a conversation about whether we should concentrate all this influence with one person. So he's controlling Facebook, he's controlling WhatsApp, and he's controlling Instagram. And he's controlling it. So once they shut down, apparently they couldn't even enter their own data center for a while.
Wow. What happened?
Because the system was... Okay, so they said there's this server, or there's a server where Facebook addresses are. So it's detailed. So if you type website address, okay, so it's there, as you can see. So what tended to happen was someone took out those addresses from the system. I mean, it was by mistake. And so that's it. Wow. It's essentially, you knocked out yourself.
Wow. Yeah. That guy's going to get fired, right? Yeah, welcome
anyway,
to
let's get on with the newspapers. And we have the Daily Graphic. And one story on the front page. On the front page of the Daily Graphic. Pokwase interchange burgled. Newly installed crash barriers tolling. Street lights removed.
Oh, yeah. As for Ghana, like we are our own worst enemies.
I mean, how?
Yeah.
I mean, who does that?
Yeah.
They've taken the crash barriers off. I mean, and you know, this, you can't police crash barriers, really. I mean, are you going to put a watchman by the crash barriers to make sure that nobody steals
every 100 meters?
I mean, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? It's so terrible. I mean,
and street lights, which also happens on the Tema motorway.
Okay, but yeah, so the police are involved and all of that. But anyway, I feel, and this tends to happen. Crash barriers are removed. It's unfortunate. We shouldn't do that to ourselves, but it is happening. We should find a way out. I feel that one way we can address these issues is to have these cameras that we have positioned all over the place. These cameras should be monitored 24/7. We should monitor the cameras, and that's a way, I think that's modern policing. Modern policing doesn't require that we have policemen all over the place. We have technology. So we can have the cameras, and the cameras should be monitoring whatever is happening on the ground. So if you see something, the police is monitoring. They see something, and then they would dispatch someone.
To go in, yeah.
To go there.
Apparently, one of our colleagues said that he once saw somebody carrying street lights, like they had stolen the street lights and they were carrying them.
And that's another thing. You see, we see things, we observe things, and we don't say anything about it.
I'm sure he did.
No. But, well, he must have, done something about it. But I'm saying that we observe things all the time. You're driving, you see someone who's being indisciplined, or you have to say something to the person.
Can I be very real with you, just for a second? I feel like, if you see somebody holding street lights or this crash barrier thing, and they've stolen it and they're walking away, you look at them and you're like, I should report you to the police.
Yes.
But in your head too, I feel like there's a part of some people's brains that's like, Charlie, everybody they steal. Like the whole, so if this be your own too, because you see, and I'm not being some way, but it flows from the top. There's a certain sense of this nation doesn't belong to all of us. There's a certain sense of, people at the top do what works for them so that they succeed. So I'm also going to do what I can because nobody really cares about me. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that it's right, it's wrong, but it's also a mindset that has to be fixed from the top. Otherwise, how many people even have confidence that, look, if I report this to the police, something will be done, there will be... I don't know if you get what I'm saying. Anyway, it's a breakdown of...
You have a point too. But because you may even call the police, you call the police emergency number and you report that, I've seen this guy taken, and what happens?
Or, or some, it's a complete breakdown of our...
Yeah, but I'll say, yes, let's have as many cameras across the country as possible, and let's have them manned 24/7, so that if you're seeing something, the police is seeing something, then they can dispatch someone to go there and get to find out, okay, so, and we have these policemen on motorbikes. They quickly get to the scene and ask you, hey, what are you doing? And if you have to be arrested, or same thing with vehicles that are, they're speeding beyond the limits we're talking about. And vehicles that also crash, and that's another problem. Some of the street lights you're talking about have been damaged, and which is another problem. If a vehicle runs into a street light in an accident, who bears the cost of that repair?
Yeah.
Okay, I believe that's why we have third-party insurance. Third-party insurance, the insurance company should pay for it. But it will be damaged, the vehicle will be towed, and the damaged street lights will be there.
Yep.
And we're damaging one street light after the other. And, all right, but so that's the main story on the front page of the Daily Graphic. But the other stories, there's another story in the Daily Graphic which people should take note of. So over 100,000 companies to be delisted, 3,100 beginning October 2021.
Yeah, I saw
and the Registrar General has actually begun to list the companies. So it says, notice is hereby giving, blah, blah, blah. It said the following first batch of companies are hereby listed for delisting from the company's register after the end of October 2021. And a number of companies have been mentioned here. They've listed over 2,000 companies in the Daily Graphic. So Poku Transport Memorial Company Limited. I'm thinking, Poku Transport is supposed to be like a very serious company, but they're going to delist them. And
I think there's a certain criteria for delisting.
So companies that haven't renewed their registration for a while.
Exactly.
Yes. But I mean, if a company is supposed to be thriving, you're supposed to be renewing it.
Yeah, exactly. The onus is on them to renew.
Okay, a few other companies that I've noticed. I've seen one other company here. It's called A+ Capital Investments Limited, A+ Properties Limited, A+ Transport Limited. So please, A+, that's your company. Yeah, you may want to go and renew your registration. All right, and so that's the other thing in the Daily Graphic, and I encourage everyone who has a company, you haven't renewed it, you should get to the Daily Graphic, see if your company's name has come out. And then I've not endorsed anybody as my successor. That's President Akufo-Addo. So that story is also on the front page of the Daily Graphic. So President Akufo-Addo has said he has not endorsed anybody to take over from him. He said any such action was an affront to the New Patriotic Party's democratic tenets and beliefs. The president, however, said he will campaign vigorously for whoever won the party's presidential primary towards the presidential race for 2024. And he was speaking on Pure FM, a Kumasi-based radio station, yesterday as part of his 4-day official visit to the Ashanti region. The president said he had to hold a balance and build a unified party. What I find missing in the story, though, is the quotes where the president says, I have not endorsed anybody. But they make reference to the introduction that the president gave at Mensha Palace when he met Asante. So he mentioned Alan Tremanting and mentioned that, well, he's been wanting to be president for some time.
Yeah.
They mentioned that great minister and said he also wants to be president. I found it odd, though, that when he mentioned them, then people broke into laughter. It's like you're mocking the people.
I think it's maybe the context in which, he said it.
Well, I mean, but people have serious ambitions. They want to be president, so it's no laughing matter. Okay, but let's move on.
But once again, Israel, like I said yesterday, one thing I have noticed about the NPP is that they're very strategic in communication. And so there's always some feeler that goes out about certain things.
Okay.
And I definitely feel like this was one of them. It's a bit difficult for me to believe that the president may have just said something in jest as a passing comment, which wasn't premeditated. You know what I mean? So I'm sure the prime minister, the unofficial prime minister of the country will at some point also, put out some feelers and all of that. Because everybody is kind of waiting to know, who the NPP are going to bring forward.
The races, the flag bearership race itself is 2 years away.
Yes, but we've started. I mean, they've started. So,
Okay. I think I would end it here, even though there's a lot more in the Daily Graphic. I think we've used a lot of the time to rant and talk about Facebook outage and all.
Yes, and life is just so interesting. Okay, so from the front page of the Ghanaian Times, carnage on road, 13 killed, 11 injured in ghastly accidents at Konongo. Intensify fights against illegal mining, that's the Yana. Takrade pregnant woman satisfies bail condition. Okay, so at last, she does that. Secret assets of Kenyan president's family exposed. Oh, so this is Uhuru Kenyatta. He secretly owned a network of offshore companies for decades. So that's the Pandora Papers.
Yeah.
You've been following that story. So 12 million files is the biggest leak in history. So Mr. Kenyatta and 6 members of his family have been linked to 13 offshore companies. Interesting, very, very interesting.
So the Pandora's papers have opened the Pandora's box.
Yes, they have.
This box is made of paper anyway.
Touché. The Chinese way of fighting coronavirus for safety and growth. That's on page 9. We're fixing deplorable roads in Ashanti region. That's according to the president. NDC must use competitive process to elect 2024 flag bearer. That's Haruna Idris. So I think that he's just kind of calling attention to the fact that it shouldn't kind of just be an obvious done deal that, ex-President John Mahama runs again without, any sort of resistance or competition.
He's actually indicated that he would back, he wants John Mahama to be flag bearer.
Haruna?
Yeah.
That's interesting. You never know, you never know. Ashanti region records 787 fire outbreaks from January to September 2021. Middle page, intensify fight against illegal mining, mobilize resources to expand, equip. Whole Teaching Hospital has been in the newspapers a lot for the past 2 to 3 weeks. Kia and Hyundai to establish assembly plants in Ghana next year. Lots and lots of tenders, Okay, government is being earned to train more psychiatrists. That's interesting because after you've trained them, it'd be interesting to see apart from the fact that we don't know which hospitals they're going to work in, if you're actually going to also set up facilities so that people who have mental health issues have places to stay, have rehabilitation centers and systems that work. It's not really just about training more psychiatrists, is it? I think that if we have the systems that work, then maybe we wouldn't have as many people on the road who obviously just need some care so that they can live very normal lives. So, okay, cedi to record relative stability to dollar in fourth quarter. You know, these headlines, Israel, these financial people things, headlines things that they are constantly, do you know that I won't say it annoys me, but it annoys me on a certain level. You know, like how there are all these headlines about, you know, the cedi relative stability to the dollar, you know, is doing the best depreciation, whatever in the past, At the end of the day, Charlie, if you hold like $1,000, it's 6,000 Ghana cedis. You debab. Like if you want $1,000, it's I remember when I moved back to Ghana. At that time, if you had $1,000, it was 1,200 Ghana cedis. If you wanted to buy that, but like all these, you know, big English terms, like they don't change the value of the money in our pockets.
They don't change. They're just telling you what the situation is.
They shouldn't tell us what the situation is. They should fix it. I mean, that was what Baumia's thing was, you know, all this plenty big talk, and they're still talking big. And, you know, the dollar has done the best that it has in the past 5, 6. Like, the point is that to buy the dollar, you still need more cedis.
Okay, so you have a point when you say that they should fix the cedi. But I must tell you that there's no way
that they can fix it.
We can maintain the value of the cedi for a long time. Because we're a developing country, we import virtually everything.
But we should. So why don't? At which point, Israel, are we going to stop?
What can be done is to slow down the depreciation. So
we import chewing gum.
Yeah. So it's also about us. I mean,
Yes, it's like this taste that we have for foreign goods, but also because you know, when I went to the US, I was struck by something very interesting. The rice that they have there is not nice, but they actually don't import rice. So like imported rice is not a big thing. Like when you go to Walmart, it is American rice, which is not like Thai jasmine or basmati. It's American.
But they have shops that have shops that sell there.
They have shops, but the shops are like the specialists. So if we wanted Thai jasmine rice, we'd have to go to the African store and buy it at maybe $30, $40, which is ridiculous. The point is, the average American is eating American rice, which is not the nicest.
But really, are they keen on rice really in America?
Well, they are, but also Nigeria. I mean, Nigeria eats this, you know, half rice. I don't know whether the rice didn't fully grow, you know, but it's like stunted growth rice, and that's why their jollof is not nice. But the point is they are eating their rice, and, you know, but we know.
But anyway, in any case, Ghana makes some really good locally grown rice.
Yeah, but we don't even promote it, you see, because too many people are making money off the system not working. I was having a conversation with my friend, and we're talking about this whole fix your country thing.
Yeah.
And she asked me a question. Do we really want to fix our country? Because do we really understand what it means if we have a fixed country? It means you cannot bribe your way. You cannot shorten the waiting time for your license or for your whatever. You can't shorten the waiting time for your passport. There are no Goro boys. There's no, like, do we really want to fix our country?
Yes, we really want to fix the country because, see, if we shorten the time, if you can't shorten the time to get your license, it means everybody's going to be in line. And if everybody's going to be in line, we can get our licenses in good time. It's like the traffic. So if you're in traffic and everybody's staying in traffic,
we will move. As opposed to when it becomes 6 lanes.
Exactly.
Yes, but we don't want to do it.
Fix the country.
I don't know. Anyway, wait. Let me finish. Liverpool fans will memorize Salah's goal against City. And I think they wanted to say memorialize.
That was a classic goal, actually.
I didn't watch it.
It was a classic goal.
Was it yesterday?
No, on Sunday.
Okay. Barca turn eye on Sterling. Osaka falls out of top 8 for the first time since 2018. Tyson Fury warned about Wilder's power. Now this one, Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury is going to be something else, isn't it? Work on Air Traffic Management Center, 92% complete, and PPAG launches parent-child dialogue on reproductive health rights.
Okay, so BNFT, port charges to be streamlined. Deputy Transport Minister, as deserving branch receive honors at Fort Shippers awards. Bank C deposits fluctuates over slow private sector recovery. Cocoa to pay farmers with electronic cash from 2022. And Ghana Link picks 3 awards at 4th Ghana Shippers Awards. And on the back page of the Business and Financial Times, Kumasi Airport expansion to be ready June 2022. And Driftfund digital road safety platform launched. Okay. So that will be it for the Business and Financial Times.
Okay, I think we should go to myjoyonline.com now. We have about 2 minutes. Okay.
You want to do the showbiz?
I want us to do the showbiz. No Time to Die breaks Bond box office record. Daniel Craig's final film as James Bond has notched up the highest opening weekend UK takings of any 007. I can't wait to see it for some reason.
Apparently, it's available at Silverbed.
Oh, nice. Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe this weekend.
Yeah.
Ooh, maybe tonight. If it's yay. Ooh. Okay, I had over 500K in my account before I got married. That's according to Ameao Deborah. And congratulations to Safwa, who is Ghana's most beautiful. Okay, my joy.
He had over
500,000. Yes. He had 557,009 in his bank account before he got married. He made this revelation in a Q&A section on Facebook on Sunday, October 3rd. So somebody asked him the question and he answered.
$500,000.
I know see some surf cry.
Okay,
Anyways,
so let's get onto my Joy Online.
Okay, John Boydu reminds NPP members that campaigning for presidential hopefuls breaches the party code of conduct. That's the banner story. The other stories on my Joy Online. Okay, I'm sure you can see the screen if you're watching us. It's a little small for us here. But okay, so let's move on to taking a break because Oreko will be joining us in a few. Okay,
so we have the leaning towards any candidate for flag bearer can step the party Akufo-Addo on 2024 leadership. The rejection of some MMDC nominees in Ashanti blamed on MPP leadership. Family of Kaka considering legal action against the Jura Committee. All right. Playback. PM Express discusses bridging Ghana's housing deficit. And Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp all go down in major outage. Well, it lasted for 6 hours, and they are back. Twitter users react as WhatsApp, Facebook, and Instagram go down. The Jura Committee became mouthpiece of fake news. Kaka's family spokesperson. Horror as woman allegedly beheads husband at a Chim Bosusu in Eastern region. Okay, well, it's a terrible story.
Yeah, okay, so that's it for the news review. But today we'll be sharing with you the story of how some girls cannot go to school because they're not allowed to cross a river. And also because that's what has been done for a very long time. And when they're menstruating, when they're in their periods, they're also not allowed to cross a river. Imagine if you couldn't go to school for 7 days in a week because you were in your period, plus 3 extra Tuesdays, so that makes it 10 days. 10 days that you could not go to school every month because of what tradition holds. We're bringing you that, but before that, here's a quick look at that documentary.
It is not fair. It is not fair because every day the boys go to school and studies, but we the girls, we can't study all the days.
Hello, good morning and welcome to the AM Sports with me, Oreko Wampo. We do have some stories for you today, and we'll be starting with a special report where Ridge Football Club won bronze in the 2020-2021 Greater Accra Regional Football Association Women's Division 1 League. They did so by beating Ningo Ladies by 3-2 at the Medina AstroTurf. Now, the story of this 4-year-old club has been remarkable, and we do have more for you in the following special report.
Fighting. They have only one defender, but they have people who can keep the ball.
This is the Monday kickabout of a 4-year-old club, Ridge City FC Women. They're a very young team making huge strides in women's football here in Ghana. They recently finished third in the Division 1 League, beating Ningo Ladies by 3-2 in the playoff. Today, the job here is simple, and that's to find out what the secret has been for Ridge City FC women and their quick rise to prominence in women's football. Founded in 2017, Ridge City FC women have quickly risen in the ranks of women's football. A team that was set up just to allow women to play football for fun is now in the Division 1 league and were on the brink of being promoted to the Middle League. Ridge City eventually finished second in their zone behind Army Ladies, but CEO of the club, Cleopatra Nsia, is just pleased that they have provided an avenue for women to express themselves.
Yeah, well, first of all, I love women's football. I love football. And then I also love women's football because obviously I'm a woman who plays football. And it's really much about giving women an opportunity to play football. And when I was younger, if I had this opportunity, I'm pretty sure I'd probably be playing football by now. I mean, the opportunities were there, but it wasn't like as it is now that we have it. And I just wanted to make sure that I wouldn't leave this earth without giving somebody else an opportunity. So hence the team. We are here, we're supporting women's football, we're encouraging women's football, we're helping women not just with the playing, with the management, with coaching, just anything that gets women into football, and also to encourage other people who are watching from the sides that, yeah, this is something that you can do if you also want to get into women's football.
Head coach of the side, Luis Ano Ampofo Jr., who used to be a sports journalist with the multimedia group, speaks of the transition from journalism to coaching and also points out some differences between women's football and men's football.
With journalism, we sit behind the cameras to talk about what they do on the field. Coaching, you're on the field. Now they talk about you. So it's been fantastic, quite amazing for me. Knowing very well now, I'm rather on the field, and then guys like you are talking about me and all that. So I think that's where the excitement comes in. Fortunately for me, I know some of the things that you're going to be saying about me and how to deal with it. So yeah, so far it's been a smooth transition and I'm quite enjoying it. With the motivation factor, I believe it's quite tough over here with the girls, and you know, everything that happens, all the happiness in their lives and everything, trying to motivate them for games and all that. But I believe it's a challenge that I'm up to. It's quite incredible. Sometimes you just look at the things that women can do with the game, and then you compare it to what guys are doing, and then you see the how do you call it, the gap between, and then trying to close it, and it feels like a job that is quite enjoyable. Sometimes we talk about football being the beautiful game, and then who else to play to be more beautiful than people who are classed as beautiful human beings and not handsome human beings.
Humble Sarah Ayimedu has had the privilege of captaining Ridge City from its inception in 2017. She's been surprised by their success this season, but even believes they can challenge for promotion next season.
It's an amazing feeling. I can't really explain it because we never expected to get to that level. Yeah, looking at our how do I call it? The way we play, we are not really improved players yet. Yeah, so looking at the way we play and all that, is very joyful that we made it to the top. Yeah, but we prepared fully towards it. All we had to do was to study the opponent during the first 10 minutes, see how they play, and then we also come into the game and then we make it. Well, the pressure towards next season is to be the winners, not the third position, but to win the cup itself, yeah, for the team. And we are praying that we make it to the Premier League. That's the aim, yeah.
A team that sits low in terms of age and experience, but when it comes to expectations, they shoot right throughout the sky. This is the story of Ridge City FC women and how they are climbing pretty quickly in the footballing hierarchy when it comes to women's football here in Ghana. They finished second in their zone in Division 1 and ended up placing third overall in Accra. This only leaves us wondering what this 4-year-old club could achieve in future. My name is Oreku Ampofo, reporting for Joy Sports from Joli. Well, from women's football, let's move to the Black Stars as 27 players would open camp this morning to begin preparation for this month's Match Day 3 and Match Day 4 of the FIFA World Cup. That's the Qatar 2022 qualifiers against Zimbabwe. We do have more for you in the following report.
This follows the decision of the technical team
to excuse 5 players from the squad ahead of the qualifiers. They include Ismail Abdul Ghani, Tariq Fosu, Alfred Duncan, Mubarak Wakasu and Emmanuel Jesse. Meanwhile, England-based right-back Andy Yadom, who plays for Reading, is currently being assessed after picking up a knock on Saturday during a championship game against Cardiff City.
Well, most of these players will be playing for the Black Stars. They start their football from as low as juvenile level. And speaking of juvenile football, Samuel Enum-Addo, a member of the Juvenile Committee of the Ghana Football Association, has responded to allegations made by some stakeholders of juvenile football and charged the juvenile football clubs to appreciate the effort of the Ghana Football Association. This comes after clubs expressed disappointment about the state of the juvenile league in a special Joy Sports report which we aired yesterday morning. Now, he was speaking to my colleague Gary Al Smith on Sports Today.
This is sometimes when you want to talk about it, you will not, if you look at only your situation, you will not be realistic, because you are looking at yourself alone and you are trying to say they should do A, B, C, D for me. Remember, the game has changed. Like I remember Yuma was saying that the game, those days, there were few clubs, the likes of Asamoah and Co, they were looking for the clubs to even play for. And you will be privileged to play for a team like Grace Cedars or Mighty Victoria, and there are few in Mantrobi. You understand me? But now it's changed. Everybody is having a club. How are they expecting the FA to fund all their activities? You understand where I'm coming from? So it's not going to be like that. The good thing that they should acknowledge and appreciate is that we are doing a lot for them. We are doing capacity building for them. We're giving them new cars. They are not paying for the cars. They are not paying for referee fees. Referee fees alone were killing us. Yeah. On a Thursday, if you are not able to pay for your referee fee alone, you can lose the game. And some of us will cry, some of us will hustle, and that referee fee was just, if I remember, it will be now, maybe, I've forgotten the figure, but you can imagine at that time. So all these things are now not being paid for. Apart from that, the FA has taken a keen interest. For the first time, you see the FA involving ourselves. I was there with the technical director, the FA president, all of us, we are getting ourselves involved. I think they should appreciate this.
Well, in case you did miss the Joy Sports report preceding this response from Samuel Enum-Addo, who sits on the Juvenile Football Committee, well, we did have a reporter, Michelle Kwenu, who visited one of the juvenile football grounds, and he did reveal or discover that, you know, when it comes to juvenile football, districts are being given 1,000 cedis, and a district can have over 80 clubs. So essentially, what that means is that each club might be getting somewhere over 12 cedis from the GFA for the whole season, and a whole lot of issues ranging from facilities to pitches and all that. So they were complaining of the adverse conditions that the children were playing in, and you just heard from Samuel Enum-Addo saying that they should be patient, and the Ghana Football Association is trying their possible best. But let's come back and talk about the Ghana Premier League, where Ashanti Gold appointed former Ebusua Draws trainer Ernest Thompson Korte as their new head coach after Roberto Landi, Milovan Serkovic, Romain Folz, Safo Castro and Thomas Dua all took charge of the club in the just-ended season. Daniel Bio, who's the administrative manager of the club, has been explaining what went into their decision.
Was influenced by a whole lot of factors. We took into consideration the philosophy of the club, the player development models we have as a club, the youth development program we intend to follow as a club before making such a critical decision. Our performance last season wasn't all that good. We placed 9th in the league competition and 2nd in the MTN FA Cup competition. Looking at the fact that we have most of our players still in the squad, I believe that their presence will be able to help us build on our performances in the previous season to achieve better results in the upcoming football season.
Well, from coaching decisions in the Ghana Premier League, let's head to the English Premier League, where Claudio Ranieri has signed a 2-year deal at Vicarage Road following the departure of Xisco Munoz, who became the first Premier League managerial sacking of the season on Sunday. Under Munoz, the Hornets won their first game in their top flight return against Aston Villa, but only managed to pick up 4 points from the next 6 games to leave them in 15th position. However, new appointment Ranieri is no stranger to English football, having enjoyed spells with Chelsea and Fulham while overseeing the most unlikely of title-winning terms with Leicester City. The former Chelsea manager's most recent job was with Sampdoria in the Serie A, but he departed in the close season after a 2-year spell with the club, having initially taken charge in 2019. Watford, who have now hired 6 and fired 5 different permanent head coaches since Marco Silva's departure in January 2018, become Ranieri's 21st club in his 35-year career. He will be joined by assistant coaches Paolo Benetti and Carlo Cornacchia, as well as fitness coach Carlo Spignoli, as he prepares for the difficult task of facing unbeaten Liverpool in his first game on October 16th. Well, that's how we wrap up the sports here. We'll be bringing you more sports throughout the day. You can check our social media handles at JoySportsGH on Facebook and Twitter, and then check my JoyOnline/sports for the latest in the world of sports. My name is Oreku Wampofo.
All right, so today is Tuesday, and for many women and girls somewhere in Ghana, it means they can't cross the River Fing, which runs through the central and Ashanti regions, because it is a taboo, one that has been in place for decades. That means they can't cross to go to school if their school is across the river, and can't also cross to go to the market or engage in economic or commercial activity. That's on Tuesdays. Additionally, girls also cannot cross the river when they're menstruating. You may find it shocking in this day and age of social media and technological advancements spearheaded by women, but it's true. This old discriminatory tradition is hampering girl child education and limiting socio-economic activities of females. We have a special feature on the AM show. And then we'll also have women's rights activists and some NGOs involved in child welfare and the Ministry of Education join us to help us understand the situation and what can be done to abolish that taboo. Before then, though, let's watch the documentary put together by Jojo Kobna.
River Fing in both Central and Ashanti regions is very sacred. There is an unwritten rule in all communities along the river, and women should not cross it on Tuesdays. In the community of Dencha Chechere, this rule is enforced to the letter. Also, when women or girls are menstruating, they are forbidden from crossing. It is believed that the curse will befall the community when women break this taboo.
The river is having a god of man, so that thing is born on Tuesday. For this reason, it is the Tuesdays when the spirits revoke in the river, maybe some menstrual cycle and those things that we cannot mention of. So as if we mention those things or we detach that things to the river is unclean. So our people or our elderly men saw that all those things attached to women are unclean for that day, Tuesday, because that Tuesday, the gods or the ancestors of the river may having some pacification or something like that. So it's taboo for a woman to attend to the riverside on Tuesdays.
If I'm Dr. Samha, I didn't feel 14 years. I school. St. John Methodist Basic School, Mitzi Village, Pakapa Village. My base school at Tichere, and so as I'm a banjas and cross the river and Sonamaba. Obo and Son, so I want to me cross the river if you say a taboo, then soon. So,
my friend Teresa Glover, I didn't feel 13 years, and I do Tuesdays and so a young man into me school boys and a young omo to me back.
Dorcas and Teresa and many other girls have to cross a river to get an education.
So we are currently crossing the Ofen River, and the gods of this river are against girls like Teresa and then Dorcas from menstruating and crossing it. They're against that. They're also against them from crossing on sacred days such as Tuesdays. one very interesting thing is the gods are not against people who are mining in this river. It's quite interesting. It's a journey where they have to cut through thick cocoa plantations for 1 hour. But on Tuesdays and on days that they menstruate, they cannot do that. It is an ancient taboo that is enforced even today. Women and girls are questioning the relevance of this taboo, what is affecting their education.
It is not fair. It is not fair because every day the boys go to school and studies, but we the girls, we can't study all the days.
A peep through the school register shows the full story. Many girls who live across the river are absent from school. Young girls are now questioning this blatant discriminatory practice.
A little the boys no muko school na boys no more and more woman saints almost me co school. Ekusuan de egu ye nchi na almost ya addressing ye girls.
According to the girls, the boys do better in school because of this archaic belief.
Ubun sabe 5 days or 4 days want me go school ebi oboko school ebi to oboko school kra na omosuan de egu echi ne musuan na wu ne bia ye de ba exams kra na no want me anye enti e problem e da ye ni girls are yet back up hospital pa.
To give girls the best education, some parents have rented rooms in Chichere so the girls would return to them on weekends and when they are not menstruating.
Me bad doctors say why a kakra say as I say on to me go school in the blood antina me so on god eklom say so boys for mu say wo anka a cladia and I say eklom dia anka matumi ahwe no so yi.
Ama Mansa recounts going into labor on a Tuesday. According to her, crossing the river was not possible because of the taboo. The chief of her community, who has a responsibility to appease to the gods of the river with a goat and gin before she could cross, was not around. So she had to walk for over 2 hours westwards before accessing a health facility to deliver.
I want to come a brand how much 30th March and I come here. I did a panel. Na mbra come ya na megina na mi like na eya de eya me ya but eya say ase atom kakra na say ntumi na ante kakra akra sa bepima am kodu nsu na me bon ba say nyaminya de onya me kakra akra ntumi ntwa me kodu krom kwan de na say ba de mpo a ende den hu say doctor for ye den mugina me so na ha de omuso ntumi ma ti die wa na be den kakra akra de akonti na me bon pa esungu nyame so say ommoa me am ti me twens you na me kodu krom a doctor for so ati me ayo.
Ama could easily have died because of this taboo or lost her baby. She does not want to challenge the river god and the old age culture. She simply wants the government to build a bridge over the river so they can cross at will. Margaret Kokoi's son drowned in the river of Fen. Her son was on his way to school when the canoe accidentally capsized and he died. Anytime she crosses the river, she recollects this painful memory. She wants the government to build a bridge over the river so that no child would cross the river to school.
Onunka yesi jwada bia mu diduane mla na sa ada no sa akwada no wanfama na mimi banum de mu diduane ko iti papa no bufuyi na o se so mo anfa duane na ma ndi o mo ankasa mfa ehye no iti o mu di hye no ko no na akwada no antimi bio na afi na papa no ko ji ya hye no ko butu wo oduru ha na wa kai se mi banu wo ka ba distanka bebi o ka nya ebia o pepe so bia obetimi abehwe mi na sisi aso yinti wa free mu prefu bretama onyini
Until then, this discriminatory practice would continue to hinder the development of girls and women. Jojo Kobna, JoyNews.
Right, so that's the documentary put together by Jojo Kobna, and yes, it's happening. It's shocking, but it's true. In this day of technological advancement, and we have so much going on for us, and yet women cannot cross a river because it's a Tuesday and because they're menstruating. But one of the things that stood out for me in the documentary, which Jojo Kobna highlighted, is the fact that if you look at the river, there's galamsey taking place, and they're actually polluting the river.
The river.
And the gods are not angry enough. I feel that maybe it's just a myth, and maybe if anybody challenged it, we can overcome it. But you can't also dismiss the fact that if people believe in something, if they attempt to defy it, they could pay for it.
Yeah. I don't think it's a matter of defiance at this point. I think that we have to honor the traditions that we have and find a way to make it work for us. So, for example, I want, to have a conversation with, some of these old people, traditional priests, whatever, about how do we pacify the gods of the river, or how do we get permission from the gods of the river to allow these girls to be able to do what they need to do. Now, the reason I'm using this approach is not necessarily because that's what I believe in, but because I've come to realize that there are traditions that we have as Africans, there are gods that we revere as Africans, and there's a certain power, undeniable, about the collective belief of a group of people, which has ramifications. I mean, call it karma, call it energy, call it whatever you will. So the reality of the situation is that permission must be sought, the gods or the elders must be pacified, and all of this must be done in such a way that we keep our eyes on the goal and do what needs to be done so that we get to the goal, which is having the girls able to go to school, or having the girls, able to cross when they're menstruating. So I think that that's something that we have to do. What's interesting about this particular one is I think this is a good case study for us, and we need to tackle this so that we can tackle everywhere else that these things happen. And yeah, okay. All right, so we're going to have a conversation. I'm going to stop ranting now with Dinah Adiko. She's a women's rights advocate, and Esther Asenso Ajiman, women's rights advocate and PhD candidate. Also, Bright Apia, Child Rights International will also be joining us. Also, we will be joined by the Deputy Education Minister. So, very interesting conversation we're about to have. You don't even want to get up and get coffee, trust me you don't. So let's get straight into the conversation. And so we have Dinah, Esther, Bright Apia, and then the Deputy Minister of Education joining us. Good morning to all of you, and thank you so much for taking time out to have this conversation with us this morning.
Good morning, anymore. Good morning, Israel.
Hi, Dinah. Okay, hi, Dinah. Hi, Bright. Hello, Bright. Good morning. Can you unmute for us, please?
And good morning, Dinah and Israel.
Hi, good morning. I think Esther is on as well now. So let me start with you, Dinah. When you heard about this, or if you've watched the documentary, how did it make you feel, first of all?
Well, apologies. You can see that I'm sitting in a vehicle. I was on my way for a meeting. I didn't get to destination, and then it's time to get on the call. So apologies for the background. I hope the sound is okay.
Yes.
When I saw the video, it just recalls all the many struggles that women and girls are going through in Africa, in Ghana, and around the world. It points to a number of restrictions that the system, society, has put on women at all fronts. I mean, across board, there's so many restrictions on women because in as much as they are in society, we have our taboos and our culture and our practices. You notice that many of the taboos and restrictions in society are targeted at women and girls. Run through all and there's one thing about culture, and then there's another about harmful traditional practices. I think our conversation this morning on this subject is linked to other harmful traditional practices, and with emphasis on harmful. We love our culture. We believe in our heritage. We actually want to keep it for generations to come. However, in our quest to maintain our culture and our identity as a people, as Ghanaians and Africans, we're also minded by the fact that some of the practices have evolved or have been established to be harmful to the development of some group of people. And this is one classic example. Anymore, this also brings to the conversations around taboos related to food. Do you know that some pregnant women are prohibited from eating certain kinds of food, particularly those that are needed for their health? For example, as simple as egg. And what is the reason? The reason is that for some cultures, the reason is the unborn baby may get accustomed to you spoil the child, just to put it very basic, would get interested in eating good food and may become a thief, maybe. So it cuts across in so many different levels. And what is the consequence? Women's economic life is suspended for a day or for the period for which they are menstruating. Girls cannot go to school, and count the number of days girls menstruate plus all the Tuesdays in the term. Yeah. And you just tell how long they are missing lessons and what that has to do on their life. So harmful traditional practices exist, but it's interesting if you begin to analyze one practice after the other, you know that at the center of it are women and girls. Hardly will you see a practice that restricts men. Let's take it from FGM. Let's go to the Trokoshi system, taboos related to food and movement, and all of that. It comes back to the fact that at the center of restrictions in society in the name of upholding tradition are women, and therefore we need to have a conversation. I agree with your introduction that we can just not up and rebel against a system. We are supposed to be very calculated in how we engage, because these are things people have believed in. The people who are gatekeeping these practices are not necessarily the people who instituted it. They came to meet it, they believe in it, they protected it all this while. It will be difficult to show up in that community and start putting restrictions on them. Having said that, also there are laws in every country. In Ghana, there are laws on anti-discrimination laws and all of that. So how do we engage on these things to work with these communities in a very careful, respectful way, but get these practices out of their way so people can live their lives?
Well, thank you very much for that, Dinah. Absolutely agree with you, everything that you said. Let me have a quick chat with Esther. Esther Asenso Ajiman is the women's rights advocate and PhD candidate. Esther, so, I mean, first question, how did you feel, or how do you feel, you know, when you discover, and I'm sure that you're aware of many more of such taboos, how do you feel about some of these things that are still affecting women? And if you can really just explain to us, if you're aware of what the particular issue is concerning women's menstruation, because it cuts across so many different religious practices that there's just something around a woman who, you know, is shedding womb lining. What exactly is the problem with that?
Okay, thank you very much, Animwa. Good morning to you and good morning to our viewers. And I agree with the first speaker, Dinah, on her position and everything that she said. And moving on, I think that we need to situate this conversation within the broader discourse of development or social change and tradition. I mean, when you look at the character of tradition, tradition is more or less static and oriented to the past, whereas development or social change is dynamic and oriented towards the present and the future. So when any time that we have had to merge or think about how to marry tradition with development, in some instances we have some of these challenges where tradition sometimes stands in the way of development. And I think that is exactly what is happening here in the case of women or girls not able to cross the river on Tuesdays, and also not to cross when they are in their period or when they are menstruating. And to answer the question about, I mean, what is it about menstruation that has generated a lot of taboos and all that? And I think it's situated in this distinctions of clean and unclean, and in a number of religious practices that there's an idea or a distinction between what is clean and what is not clean. And I believe that in most animist faith or traditional religious beliefs, it's hold generally that when a woman is in her menses, she's an unclean person at that time, and therefore must be separated from what is sacred and what is hold in high esteem, so that, I mean, she will not create pollution and blah 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 blah. But I believe that these are things that we can engage with, because education in itself has intrinsic and instrumental value. You know, you educate someone because it is important for the person to understand his or her world, and also understand how the world operates. And also education is also relevant even in our pursuit of development, beginning with the fact that it creates avenues for social mobility through maybe the job that you earn and the income that will accrue to you. It also helps to, you know, move forward our development agenda. And so I believe that anything that stands in the way of achieving the intrinsic and instrumental value of education, we have to engage with it. But not forgetting that we also need to be mindful that tradition is a social fact. A lot of cultures, or every culture has its own tradition, but those that stand in the way of development must be challenged and engaged with appropriately. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Esther. And I see you try to situate this whole thing in a certain context, and not to rubbish our cultures and traditions. And indeed, if we have to go back or look at our cultures and traditions, you find there's very good reason why they would come up with something, a taboo, or some of these things, the practices that we're talking about. And so I agree with you when you say that we probably should go back and get to understand the source or the origin of some of these traditions, so that it will help us if we are trying to get rid of them. But I'll bring in Writer Pia of Child Rights International and ask him how do we approach trying to deal with some of these traditional beliefs and practices?
Well, thank you very much. And I will build my point on what your other colleague raised, the valid point that she made on the fact that tradition is very powerful and people believe so much in it. So when you are taking it, you also have to be very careful how you approach it. But looking at it from the child's right perspective, you could see that there's a clash between the right to education of the girl child and then culture. And when that happens, there's a clear way out for us to determine as to what is necessary for the development of the child. We know that when it comes to the right of education, even at the global level, it is compulsory and it must be free. That is the kind of commitment given to various states to ensure. Then you also look at our constitution. It is something that we can enforce to ensure that nothing would impede that process for the enjoyment of the right to education. So if you pick the two, then we also need to balance it to see which one is more relevant in terms of the development of our children, and what understanding do we want them to have within the cultural context. Because just as the last lady said, there's a history to it, and you also laid emphasis on it, that there's a history to it. And all these things must be clearly, we must have clear understanding of all those things so that we can place it in the context. But whatever it is, our legislation is so clear that anything that will impede on the right to education should be considered as a bad practice. Therefore, there must be a way for us to deal with it. In any case, if it is about women being in their menstruation or the girls shall be in their menstruation to access education. There are so many ways that a child can keep herself to have access to education that will not have any effect on the cultural practices, whether it is a taboo for them to cross the river or not. So we also have to find ways and means to also handle that cultural aspect in the context in which they understand it, so that we can still pave way for the girl child to have access to education. The simplest thing that we have done in respect to these menstruation and crossing river and not going to a certain areas in a particular time is purely based on the society considering people who are in menstruation as unclean. And now there's a modern way of making it so clean for people to have access to wherever they want to go, engage in all kinds of activities that they want to engage in and all that. So it is the understanding that we need to provide. But I strongly believe that if you have a culture that first denies children their right to protection, deny children their right to survival and development, deny them their right to participation and having a right to education, the state must also sit down and look at it and say that this is a bad practice. It's hindering the progress of our children, it's hindering their development. And if this is the way culture wants to go, then we also need to find our way out to ensure that they have access to education. But when you pick the law, a right to education supersedes that of culture. So we need to respect that in relation to children. I'm saying this in relation to children because our laws make a special case for the girl child and their children. So these are things that, for me, we have to look at. First, provide the understanding of what culture is seeking to do in respect to this kind of menstruation. Once we're able to do that, I think that we will find a way out to deal with this particular case where our children will have access to education.
And Bright, just a quick one. How is it that we have almost managed to overlook some of these things that have gone on for, hundreds of years? How is it that in this day and age we're now having to deal with these things? What exactly was the problem?
Yeah, I think that it's all about commitment, because I can tell you that even way back as 1993, when we take the giant step to formulate policies that protect the right of children, there's a document that we developed. We call it The Child Cannot Wait. And there are two things that we distinguish in that law. That we say that poverty and culture will not be a hindrance to the development of children. So if you look at most of the laws that we did, it builds on the principle of welfare. So clearly, we have defined a way out for the development of our children. So it is just a matter of commitment that we have not shown. Or even if there are cultural issues, there's a way that we can engage with people or the traditional authorities. We've done that in certain areas, and they've accepted it and they are working with it. So it's a commitment that is lacking in this process. That's why we are still seeing this kind of negative practices having effect on our children.
All right, so we all agree, all of us on this in this conversation, Esther, Diana, Bright, yourself, and Nimwa, and myself, we all agree that these are cultural norms and practices that we cannot just do away with. We cannot wish away. These are things that people respect. And we also agree that the children have a right to education, and the women should also freely go about engaging in their economic and commercial activities. But if we said, all right, let's do away with this practice, the children can cross the river on Tuesdays, and the women can cross when they're having their menstruation, you'd appreciate that no woman will cross the river, right? And I'm putting this to all of you.
Well, I don't know, because there are instances where traditional authorities, when they allow certain practices to take place, they perform certain rituals within their context. I don't believe in those things, though, but they perform those rituals that they deem to pave the way for the practice of those cultures and all that. So the same system can be adopted to do that. And I don't think that, it's a culture. And once it's something that exists in the community, everybody will be under that obligation to perform it. Because I even went to Ebusumtri, the river there, and there's a lot of mysteries around it. And because of that, certain people are not performing certain activities around the river at a certain times, looking at the history and all that. So they believe in it. So if you don't take a lot of education to let them understand that this is what it is, then they will still hold on to that kind of belief. For that matter, they will not even if the system allow it or the cultural system allow it, they would even participate in the process and all that. So once we want to do that engagement, then some level of understanding must also come to bear on how we can have that done so that our children will be free. The most important thing is that we cannot use culture to hinder development of our children. Already, you know, in the rural areas, time on task is a problem. So if you have children missing Tuesdays because they are in their menses, they miss Tuesdays, within a month, let's even say that we have about people they menstruate periodically or every month. You realize that children will be missing about 8 hours, more than 8 hours, even within a month. And that is going to also affect their performance. So clearly, once we have defined that education is the way forward for the development of our children, we should try to remove all the impediment to pave the way for the enjoyment of right. And the traditional authorities must also come to understand that so that together we can move the practice forward.
Yeah, and yes, I was making that exactly the point you're making, and which is, we can't do this without the traditional authorities. We can't just say that, because if you say that, yes, we've abolished this taboo, or the state comes in and says, let's get rid of this taboo, people will still not cross until they have the assurance from the traditional authorities that you can go ahead to cross it. And so I'm asking what the approach should be. And I want to bring in Dinah at this point. Dinah, how do you suggest we go about this?
I think Bright had hinted already that we cannot bypass traditional authority and get around this. You've indicated very truly that it will backfire. So it has to be from a point of awareness. I think some of these taboos emerged out of the mystery around, for example, menstruation. Many people in the past, they don't understand how a woman or a young girl would bleed for 5 days, and then she's dry again, and then she begins to bleed. So the mystery around it made them to find solutions in a way that they were comfortable with. Now that there's science to explain what menstruation is, and it's not as filthy as the world thought it was, it will be easy to use that science to engage with traditional authority, to use the evidence of poor performance of girls in schools and economic struggles of women as an evidence to engage with them and say, do you think we would be better off if we allow women to have access to certain spaces without limitation or limits? And if they agree, it's not going to be a one-off session or effort. Over a period of time, show other communities, we can use success stories of other communities who took that bold step, who changed some of these practices, and they had the freedom to develop. Use the evidence of that. Use the evidence of the difficulties and negative impact of their current practice. Show the evidence that menstruation is not mysterious, it's not evil, it's not filthy as people thought. Explain how it came about or it comes about, and then agree with them. Bright said something. We've seen other communities where they went together to the riverside. They needed 9 days, 7 days, 14 days to perform the ritual, to free the space for women to engage and girls to engage in. If that is done, women will courageously use across the river anytime. But before then, nobody, and you are very right, is going to instruct. But people believe in these things, especially when you cannot explain it, you don't dare it, because they are not sure what the consequence would be. We heard the story of the little boy who drowned. If I understood what the woman said, it had something to do with the failure to perform a certain ritual, and along the way, in the process, somebody lost his life. So it goes back to even strengthening the system they have put in place. And therefore, we cannot just outlaw it, criminalize it, and make headway. It doesn't work. Take FGM, for example. When it was outlawed in Ghana, people crossed the Burkina Faso to go and have their children circumcised because they believe that it had to be. So there has to be thorough engagement, awareness, and it must be led by the traditional authority and the people themselves, based on the understanding they have. Otherwise, we'll talk about this for as long as we so desire. We may not get the results we want.
All right. Let me come to you, Esther, and I'm asking you in your capacity as a PhD candidate. I'm sure you've seen this over and over and over again. How much of a climb, an uphill climb, do we really have if we want to be able to tackle this thing? Every time we talk about things that have to do with women, where the power to liberate or the power to set free is in the hands of men, I ask myself this question. We have to convince the men that giving us or allowing, it hurts me to say allowing, or giving us the access and the freedom will cost them some sort of power, cost them, some sort of influence in freeing up women to be everything that they can be. So we're talking about these traditional, leaders and all of that, and most of them are men. How do we convince them that there is benefits in giving women the kind of access that ultimately gives them the kind of power that men have? How much of an uphill climb do we really have in order to be able to do this?
Yeah, thank you very much, Anyway, and thank you, Diana and Bright, for the contributions. I agree with all that you mentioned, particularly engaging with our traditional leaders and gatekeepers, creating awareness, and so that the needed behavioral change can occur. And indeed, there's an uphill climb, particularly looking at the context where we want to bring about this change. It's a closely knit community, and the kind of bond that connects the people are very, very high. So whereas in other contexts, like in urban areas, because people have moved in from various social backgrounds, when you and the role of migrants in leading change helps to propel the needed behavioral change even among the indigents. And indeed, usually when we think about engaging with men in terms of gender issues, we mostly conceive of power as a zero-sum game, which means that the more you have, the less I will have. And I think that is not the whole story about power sharing. We have various centers of power where people can have as much as they want and still allow others to also have the same thing and might not come in their way, And so it's important for us to think about how we operationalize this change, given that the community is so closely knit. And one of the things I would want to bring our attention to is that even though we can lead the change, just like we have all noted, even though we can lead the change, propelling the people to accept and accept the change that will bring about the results we are requesting might not be easy. But indeed, when we begin, results might be mixed, but over time, change can happen. And I believe it's something we should do to make sure that this practice does not stand in the way of the development of women and girls in the community. Thank you very much.
Because so quickly, we are all finding ways on how to resolve this thing. Now, I want to ask you, Bright, who should lead this? So we decide that, yes, let's engage the traditional authorities. Who should start the conversation?
Power, we have issues of this nature. We have power given to institutions to handle, unless those institutions deem it fit to give that power to somebody else to do it on their behalf. So you expect that I, in this case, would look at the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, with the Ministry of Education, and also the Interior Ministry to handle these particular cases in a manner that would also help them. Initially, some of these things were placed under employment and social welfare, but now we have a different assignment altogether. So we expect these institutions to take the matter up so that we can see to the smooth transition of these cultures to pave way for our children. So basically that is what it is. And sometimes it's a bit difficult when to answer some of these questions, looking at the history of the ministries and what we have experienced from them in the past when it comes to these cultural practices and all that. You remember the witch camp, you remember the trocracy system. They led it and they brought some kind of changes in those areas, though we're still perfecting it. But they led the process. And once they lead the process, you'll see that other institutions will also come on board to ensure that things are done. And now there's a whole campaign about government even giving free sanitary pads to girls. So it falls within their domain perfectly to also look at how to remove some of these cultural practices to pave way for these policies to also be in place.
All right, so Bright mentions three ministries. Esther, do you agree we should let those three ministries or governments lead this?
I think that the points or the centers of change can be varied, and I agree that government indeed has a role to play. But we can also think about community level mobilization and the role of civil society. And I think that these other agents can also propel the change. And you know, in Ghana currently, the experience of or how people encounter the state in various spaces differs. So when you move from urban areas to rural areas, you really notice that the presence of the state or the government is really minimal. And so in some instances, even though we believe that we live in a nation that is modernized, where the state has power over tradition and all that, I think that there could also be other actors who may also have influence as much as the government. And in a number of communities, they have community consultations where they engage with various stakeholders like churches, women's group in the community and all that. And I think that some of these groups can be empowered to give them the voice to bring forth some of the changes that we are thinking about. And a number of civil society organizations are also involved. Bright is with an NGO, and they can also lead the change that we want to see. Thank you.
All right, so Dinah, I'll bring you in at this point. We've identified one major way or one key way to resolve this. Engage the traditional authorities so that probably we can have one huge pacification right. And I would want to believe that it will depend on the community. So we have to do this community by community because the River Finn it runs through two regions. And there'll be several communities along the course of the river. So you would have to move from community to perform these things. And as you've indicated, the government should lead. That's one way of dealing with it. But in the feature that Jojo put together, there's a suggestion that we probably should have a bridge. Because let's face fact, it's not even safe having the people cross the river, whether they're doing it on Tuesday, but if someone has to go to school and they have to cross a river, that's quite dangerous. So maybe we should be looking at the other options, having a bridge, not so costly bridge that would straddle or go across the river at different intersections and communities. Again, this comes to government or falls on government. But of course, there are organizations too that can take it upon themselves to mobilize resources to get this done. Dinah, what do you think of that?
Yeah, you're totally right. And when there's a problem or a situation, we look at the options we have. There are so many options. And one of it is it's even safe to have a bridge. When there's a river and people have to connect to the other side of the river, we all know it's very safe to have a bridge. So it goes without saying, and that community obviously desperately needs a bridge. Having said that, I mean, this is a situation that instead of, every community needs its own development based on the needs of the community. But we can talk about a bridge. It might not be the full solution to harmful traditional practices. when the practice is harmful to the development and the well-being of some groups of people, and in extension the entire community, it is important to have a conversation about it. If you could introduce a bridge and then see women crossing it as a beginning point for having that conversation, but these conversations need to be had because they are harmful in other so many different ways. So yes, the bridge is very critical, but what are those things that bring restrictions on the movement of other people and categorizing some people as a threat to the well-being of the community? We need to begin to engage, especially now that we have an understanding of why some of the things are the way they are. Formally, I hear some of this, no going to farm on a certain day, no going to the river on a certain day, were introduced as a way of breaks. People needed to take a break from long, hard work. And so they brought these systems about. But the same communities who are holding on to these ones that are restricting, they are easily using mobile phones. They've switched onto technology. They are using vehicles. They are driving in and out. They are open to all forms of change. So let us encourage them to embrace change that liberates other groups of people. Let's begin to understand why some kinds of restrictions are meant for only a certain category of people. And when we have those conversations, the bigger issues of restrictions and limitations on women and the fact that a few people have to make decisions about the rest of the community members would also be addressed in that process. So it's a bigger conversation, not only about restrictions tied to taboos, but it's also tell on the role, participation, and voice of women and children in such communities. It just tells you who makes the decision. It tells you when they gather together, who speaks. What days do they even gather? Do they gather on a Tuesday at the other side of the river also, which has introduced another culture of eliminating some people's voice in decision making? So if you begin to digest and interrogate this and unpack it, you are going to find different elements of discrimination and restriction that need to be addressed. So I agree with the bridge, but it would not be a reason to shove the conversation that this practice is harmful and we cannot continue with it.
Yes,
to show up in it, sometimes it's relocating the problem. The bridge will come, but we'll find other ways to make sure menstruating women and girls do not participate in something else, just to continue to worship the part about menstruation and restrictions.
Does it not then say, Dinah, that obviously that the problem has to be tackled? The core problem of the taboo has to be tackled before we start to find, other ways of dealing with the problem. I was even going to suggest, maybe actually coming to build a school in that area so that the children don't actually have to cross the river. But then are we only going to have male teachers? Because if they're female teachers, they can't cross the river from the other villages to come and teach. So regardless of what measure we put in place, ultimately we're going to have to tackle
the roots.
Exactly.
The roots of it.
The menstruation.
The roots of it. So the menstruation part and the whole mystery about it, and there's so much myth about menstruation. It's high time we open this conversation up across the country. I know a lot of civil society organizations and groups are doing so much work to increase awareness and understanding our menstruation and pregnancy. So it's just pushing that conversation a bit up. And if we put a school up, we're still going to deal with that restriction about not crossing. And you cannot move everything to one part. People have to move about. Why should we restrict people's movement? And because, okay, we brought you in school so you can't move. So it's very important to have that conversation. So I will add the Ghana Health Service to the group of people that Esther and Bright have listed. Civil society extremely critical. They kind of have the instruments and the tools and strategies to engage communities in ways that we've seen profound results and progress. So I think when Ministry of Gender is brought on board, the Health Ministry of Education comes on board, the Health Service is on board, we get civil society strongly in there as the strongest partner because they have a strong way of engaging communities. I heard Bright talking about interior. They will strategically be brought on board so then people are not frightened or intimidated by the officers they introduce and all of that. And everybody, we heard about religious bodies and all of that. We have to have that conversation gradually but consistently. We don't go in one and say the people have refused. we have to make a strong case for why this is not a way to go, and then we can cause a change. But the bridge is one, a school closer to them is one, and bringing the bridge and the school solve a lot of other problems apart from crossing the women and girls not crossing the river. But then we have to have that conversation. It's long overdue. It's been done in other parts of the country. We can do it in these communities.
Okay, I just want to ask Bright a really quick question. Bright, in your experience, all the years that you've been, advocating for children's rights, apart from, your organization and a few, maybe other, CSOs, a few other media houses and stuff, do you really get the feeling that anybody really cares about whether this is changed or not?
Oh yes. There are a lot of people who cares about these issues, and I must commend the media space for always exposing some of these issues and all that. And the NGOs are doing perfectly well. When it comes to developmental issues in this country, I can say that the civil society organizations are taking the lead in finding ways and means to deal with some of the ills within our society that is having effect on women, children, persons with disability and all that. So there's that recognition. And what we need to add is for us to see how the state can also have a full frame of the whole issue, so that when you are discussing, it's not as if we are exposing the state, but rather we are contributing to the development of the state and all that. So,
but Bright, must we apologize for exposing the state? I mean, must we actually apologize for exposing the state, or for saying that it's 2021 and in the Republic of Ghana, there are still places and villages where girls cannot go to school because they cannot cross a river, and the government doesn't really seem to give two hoots whether it's done or not? Especially, it's not as if this river is like some unknown river in the middle of a jungle where there's no access. Look at the color of the river. There's so much illegal mining going on there. So there's nothing that can convince me that the players of the government are not aware of the things that are going on in those areas, even just based on the fact that they may have gone there to inspect what goes on with the river. Do you get what I mean? So when we suddenly make it, seem like, oh, we're not exposing the state. No, I'm exposing the government this morning, because I am upset about it, and the fact that it's about time something is done. I want to know what the Minister of Gender and Social Welfare thinks about this. This is what she's supposed to be dealing with. And yet we're still doing this, the gender welfare, child protection, everything that goes under her ministry. And yet we're still dealing with this. And we're having these conversations. And I'm thinking to myself that after we have this conversation, is anybody going to care enough to actually take it a step further? Because the truth is that Israel and I cannot go there and go and negotiate with the traditional leaders. We don't have the power to do that. But the people that have the power, are they actually going to do it? Does it matter to them if there's no profit to be made, if there's no money to be made?
Yeah, you see, the work that you've done and what others are doing, is to draw the attention of government.
We've been drawing the attention for a very long time.
Whether we are exposing them or not, the state must take it in good faith and then operate with it. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. The state should not see the work being done to expose some of these things or bringing some of these into their attention as an attack, but rather we'd have to pick the issues and deal with them, because these are things that are affecting all of us. And the last count of the investment that we've made in education is in billions. So if you see a certain class of people being denied as a result of cultural practices, then it means that the investment that the state is putting in our education will go to waste. So clearly, these are issues that we need to deal with, and I don't think that we just have to massage the issue. But what I'm trying to say is that the state must always see this as an opportunity to go into a venture where their investment will be protected, so that we don't have any child losing in the process of all these cultural practices that we have. So clearly, we have to pursue the matter, and for us as an organization, we have pursued a lot of issues. And if let me just even give you a small history of the thing that has happened in the past. If you look at when we passed the Children's Act, a lot of work that was done by the late Honorable Ama Benuado on some of these things. You come to the time that the late Honorable Gladys Asma was developing the gender ministry, the lot of work that had gone into it, the work that they've done around it. So clearly, if government take the lead, if government recognizes that I want to do this, they always have the capacity to do that. That's why we are saying that, yes, they have to take some of these things in good faith so that they can operate with it, so that at the end of the day, it is the life of our children that we want to save. So that is what should matter to all of us.
All right, so I think we should be looking at the way forward. We all agree that there's something that can be done. Bright is suggesting that we bring in the state. He mentions a number of ministries that he feels should lead. But let's for a moment imagine that government will not lead it, or the state will not lead it. Can all of us here in this conversation just commit that we could, Bright, for instance, your NGO has been around and has done some incredible work. Could you, together with Esther and Dinah, probably come together and say that you're going to take it upon yourselves to want to maybe approach some influential traditional leaders in this country who, when they speak, all the other traditional leaders may want to, fall in line and want to do something about it. Could you probably want to take it up as a campaign? We can call you the coalition of women's rights advocates, advocating for the abolition of taboos across the country.
Wow. It's wrong.
This portfolio is so huge, but whatever it is that we need to do to protect the interests of children, I can promise that Child Rights International will be on board.
All right. How about you, Esther and Dinah?
Yes, I think it's a laudable initiative, though daunting, but not undoable. I think commitment of individuals have in various spaces brought about remarkable changes, and I think it's something I am really looking forward to. Yeah, thanks.
All right, Dinah.
Israel, it's today is Tuesday, right?
Yes.
Early in the week, commitment. Well, so let me say there's evidence that civil society has actually led change for such behavior. I remember before the closure of the week, one of the witch camps in the northern region, that effort was led by Taboo, and it's an NGO, and the Action Aid. And when they had engaged community leaders, traditional leaders, the alleged women who were alleged to be witches and all of that, and they got to that point where they agreed that that particular witch camp could be closed and the women reintegrated. They brought the agenda to the Ministry of Gender, who endorsed, supported it, and then took it up and finished to the closure of that camp, and the women were reintegrated. So we've seen civil society and individuals lead such campaign, and it's been successful time after time after time. You need to be strategic about it, you need to be targeted. And I agree, when we're struggling to deal with issues of child marriage at a point, we went through the National House of Chiefs, where we had representation for all the regions and all of that. And these members of the House of Chiefs began to pick it up in their region. I didn't see that process to the end, but I believe that if it was followed through, we would see leadership change coming from within, but from the top. You get that kind of scenario. So it's a good idea that individuals can be committed to this. I think the person who wants to lead it will be Jojo Kobna, who brought this documentary up. So he will be the president of this group. But it can be run, it can be done, but we should get the right. There are people already, there are civil society groups and organizations already in those communities. We can't sidestep them. We would have to relook at who is working in those communities. What have they done so far? What has been their biggest challenge, and what support do they need? But we are not going to hold brief for government for stepping the gap. We think one of our roles as activists will be to remind the government that there are gaps. When Bright said we didn't look like we are telling the government, I think what he's saying is that we don't want to work outside government, but we probably want to work in partnership as a team on these issues, and not only to call them out and sit and see whether they will fail or they will not. But we're working in partnership. We are not going to fill the gap for government. Government has all it takes and it needs to get change done, and we have to remind them continuously and consistently that they should get the work done with our support. But individuals, we can do activism and engage and lobby and all of that, but hey, at the end of the day, the buck stops with government, Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection should be at the forefront of this. If it slipped off their radar, we are reminding them now, and we believe that somebody in charge, Department of Children and Department of Gender, will come together and invite the right stakeholders around the table, and we should get this one story at a time. This one that has been revealed by Jojo and JoyNews should be addressed, and we use that as a sample to as a template to follow through the rest. No excuses.
All right, so we have a number of people who have been watching the show and following the conversation, and they're commenting on Facebook. Let's get on to Facebook now and bring you some of the comments that they have.
Okay, so Basing Diallo Ketigwe says, we won't have this conversation if Ghana was developed and had footbridges across rivers that are deemed abominable for the female child to cross on Tuesdays. Let's deal with the traditional celebration of our independence. What's Ghana free from? The white man or herself? In fact, Ghana needs freedom from herself. Okay, let's take a couple more. Rules and regulations must be obeyed. This is just a simple direction. Okay, Rolex.
And yes, Rolex, we're not saying that rules and regulations must be disregarded. We're actually having the conversation in the context of approaching the traditional authorities and speaking to them about some of these things and having them probably have another look at them. So Rolex, we're not saying that we're doing away with the traditions and cultures. All through the conversation, we have made it clear that we respect the traditions and the cultures and all the beliefs. Let's get some more of the comments on Facebook.
Okay, Alexander says, let's respect our culture. It's just Tuesday alone, no problem. Actually, it's not just Tuesday alone. It's Tuesdays and the length of period that a woman is menstruating for, which runs from 3 to 7 days every month. So it's a minimum of 10 days every month that the girl cannot go to school. So not really just Tuesdays. Let's take a few more comments on our screen. Okay, Mike MK Jr. says, I used to cross Tano in the night for studies in Techiman until I spoke Yawa against it. Ask me what happened the following night. Mr. Blogger, be bold and give it a try. If you're a female, just walk and cross, or if you're a man, just send your wife and let her walk and cross, and then boom, you come back and write your second article with I can't literally read what you're saying. Okay, Jackson, example, you call your tradition old and discriminatory, but if a pastor is to give you a direction or any form of prophecy, it's taken as divine intervention. Wise up, bro. I think we didn't call the tradition old and discriminatory, but okay. Samuel says tradition must be safeguarded and respected. This is what makes us who we are. Can't a path be created to ease movements for them? Let's respect who we are. I think that's the point that we're making about
Let's get the replies. Let's get into the replies and see what people are saying. Okay, so Kuga, please, you go there yourself. No one will stop you.
Okay, Samuel says, sweetie, you see, back in the days before the white man came, we lived in peace, and hardly will you hear of this sad moment that has engulfed us now. The white man gave us reasons why some of our traditions are bad and that we have to change it. Unfortunately, our fathers subscribed to it, which is being passed on from birth till birth until now. Well, the white man also gave us Facebook, which you're typing on. So let's take some more. Can we just take some more comments? Okay. These are all replies. Okay, Dramani says, no one have a thought over this. Nothing too can be done. We only have to respect tradition. Okay, enough of the Facebook comments?
Yes, let's get to our people.
You mean Dinah, Esther, and Bright?
Dinah, Esther, and Bright. We thank you very much, and I'm sure from the comments you can see the direction and the way people are thinking about all of this, and
I just say something?
The task a whole lot more.
Yes, well, I find, and I would be hypocritical if I didn't say that. It's not the way that you see what people are thinking. You see what men are thinking. Every single comment has been from a man. I have not seen a comment from, and you see, this is why I get so annoyed sometimes, is that these things don't actually affect you as a man. You don't menstruate. You don't know what it's like to be discriminated against on such a level. And so you come in and then you're quick to say, well, it's tradition, well, it's tradition, well, it's tradition. But if it affected you, would you feel that way? And that's the point that I'm making, that all of these comments are from men. And that is the number one problem with trying to change things like this in Ghana, is that these thoughts are so ingrained in the mind of men, and then we are powerless because we need to count on these men to fight for us. I mean, imagine the kind of dilemma that it puts you in. Anyway, that was the point. I'm done. I'm not going to say anything again. It's okay. Before I fight with Bright too, just because he's a man, or I fight with Israel.
All right, but thank you very much. I mean, there's a whole lot more that needs to be done. I'm sure you'd all appreciate. But we thank you very much for joining us in this conversation, and for what looks like the Offenso or River Offenso Declaration, and having you, Diana Diko, a women's rights advocate, Esther Asenso, also a women's rights advocate and a PhD candidate, and Bright Appiah of Child Rights International, for joining us in this conversation. We're looking forward to the signing of the declaration. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
We're looking forward to working with you on that. And I must put this on record that we had spoken with the Deputy Minister of Education, who had agreed to join us for this conversation, but he later says he declined. He cannot be part of this conversation. It's unfortunate, though, but yes, that's what
It's very, very unfortunate, and that's all I'm going to say.
All right, thank you. And you enjoy your day. We'll have more coming up on the AM show. Do stay tuned in. All right, so you're welcome back on to the AM show, and it's been a gloomy conversation about girls and women who cannot cross the river, but we have something to celebrate. Teachers have been wonderful and are still wonderful. If you're able to read and write, say a big thank you to your teacher. We will be activating the phone lines for you to celebrate that special teacher. So the numbers will be on your screen in a bit, and then you can call. It's Teachers' Day, and so let's get on. You can call us 030-221-1691 or 2. Let's celebrate our teachers. My favorite teacher was Mrs. Annan of blessed memory. She was in Osu Presbyterian Preparatory School, Class 2. She taught me in Class 2, and I so admired her. I so admired her. I don't know about yours.
I don't think I have a favorite teacher.
Okay.
I don't really recall any of my teachers who at some point didn't give up on me. Which is why I'm laughing.
They gave up on you.
I mean, they all absolutely gave up on me. Except maybe, I think, the headmistress of Wesley Girls High School when I was there, Mrs. Nancy Thompson.
Okay.
I remember my dad drove to the school one day to tell her that he's tired of me. He doesn't know what to do.
Your dad?
Yes. He doesn't know what to do. Like, if she cannot change me and make me serious in my life, then nobody can make me serious in my life. And she called me into her office and had a conversation with me. I think it was the first time.
Were you that troublesome?
I wasn't troublesome. I just didn't care. Do you know what I mean? Why are you looking at me like that? So she called me into her office and had a conversation with me. I think it was the first conversation ever. It didn't change me necessarily, but that kind of got to me. And so I think I cried, and then I tried to be serious a little bit. It didn't really work long term. But I do remember, that moment where, she said, I believe in you. I think you can, do great things, and you can do. And so I think there was that moment. But apart from that.
Have you changed?
I don't think so.
Let's get on to the phone lines. Mashoud is calling from Townley. Hello, Mashoud. Who's your...
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Who's your favorite teacher? Hello, Mashoud. Who's your favorite teacher, and what would you want to say to your favorite teacher?
Mashoud, can you stop listening to yourself on the TV? Put off the TV and listen through the phone.
Okay, that's what I'm doing exactly.
That's not what you were doing, Masa. It's now that you are doing it. We are listening.
Okay. I would like to celebrate my favorite teacher, Paul Japa, former headmaster of St. Charles Minor Seminary, Tamale.
Okay.
All right. What is it that he did for you that impressed you so much? Oh, we lost my shoot. Okay, so we have Benjamin
from Manso and Kwanta.
Yes, Benjamin.
Hello, Benji.
Hello, officer.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, who's your favorite teacher?
My favorite teacher is Mr. Albert Agbeshi of the University of Education, Willenbank. He teaches com skills.
Okay. Why is he your favorite teacher?
Yes, because what I like about him is that he's very workaholic and he takes his job very seriously. And once you pass through his hands, you should expect that you're able to polish up your language, and that's what I really admire about him.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you, Chief, for calling us. Let's go to Majesty calling from Tamale. Hello, Majesty.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Yeah, morning. What's up?
I'm cool.
Okay, so I'm good too, thank you. Who's your favorite teacher?
Wow, my favorite teacher is Mr. Sami from Zabzuru Senior Secondary School, a science teacher.
Okay, why is he your favorite teacher?
Pardon?
Why is he your favorite teacher?
Well, he was the disciplined type who encouraged and motivated students to learn at the day. Pardon?
No, I'm listening to you.
Okay, so he was the type who encouraged and disciplined students for them to study.
Okay, well, thank you very much for calling us, Majesty. Let's go to Somanya, where we have Michael. Hello, Michael.
Hello, madam. Please, good morning to you and Israel.
Good morning, please. Good morning to you too. So who's your favorite teacher?
My favorite teacher is myself.
Is your who?
Myself. I'm a teacher myself.
Oh, okay. So your favorite teacher is who?
It's myself.
It's like I was hearing the thing, but I wasn't hearing the thing well.
So
hey,
I'm speaking from Yilok Robert Senior High.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'm a teacher, and I appreciate to be a teacher.
I see. You are appreciating yourself.
I celebrate myself. And
very, very good. Very, 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 very fantastic. We celebrate you too, Michael.
Thank you so much.
Well done. Well done. Thank you so much for your service.
Okay, we also have Momen calling from Takrady. Hello, Momen.
Yeah, please, good morning.
Good morning. Who's your favorite teacher?
My favorite teacher is Mrs. Benedicta. She taught me way back 15 years ago, somewhere in Abuatu Holy Quran.
Okay.
Yeah, very nice, beautiful teacher. But that teacher can be, she brought out the best out of me.
Okay.
I greet her wherever she is.
Okay. Yeah, while at it, let's also hear from people who had their teachers being their crushes. So if you have your teacher being your crush, well, I must confess my class 2 teacher was my crush, actually.
As in like you had a crush on her?
I had a crush on her.
I see.
Yeah. So yeah, if you happen to be in a situation like that too, yes, let us know. But we have Yakubu calling from Wale Wale. Hello, Yakubu.
Yes, sir.
Who's your favorite teacher?
My favorite teacher, I don't know whether I can select 2 of them.
Can select 5, it's fine.
Yeah, Yakubu, go ahead.
Yeah, I said I don't know whether I can select one teacher or...
You can do a number. It's
fine.
Oh,
okay. Then to start with, I would like to appreciate a teacher who taught me from crèche up to now where I am. Actually really impacted in my life. He's a person of Mr. Asamoah Anthony, who was a teacher in a modern public school in Kidampo.
All right.
Then from here, I would like to appreciate my teacher again, or my lecturer, who get me from Element Technical University, that's Upper West Region 1.
Okay.
He's Mr. Godfred Esse, yes, in short. It's really good. I have time for the teacher, the students, I must say. He's a friendly teacher and all that. And then another lecturer who I forget, who, if I should not mention his name here, I might not be justice, who is in the person of Dr. Solomon Dansia. He has the whole students' body at heart. And I must say, I really appreciate him. And I'm really grateful to meet such a person in life. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And yes, and thank you very much to all those of you who called.
Yeah.
We're also joined on the line by Thomas Musa.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thomas. So Thomas.
He's the secretary for NAT.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Should I just take this? I have a question from Thomas.
Hello, thank you very much. Good morning to your good self and to all your listeners.
Hi, good morning, and happy World Teachers Day.
Thank you.
We love you. We appreciate you for tolerating our children. Oh, hey, when we were on lockdown, we were dying. So we are happy.
We are grateful. We are grateful. We pray that we can count on your support in every aspect of the work. Because together we will have to make Mother Ghana great and strong. Yeah. So God bless you for your support.
All right. So, Thomas, another part of the conversation, we're grateful for all that you guys are doing as teachers for our kids. But then the other conversation we should be having, I feel, is if teachers are being... do you feel that you're being rewarded well enough?
In terms of the you see, in terms of the reward, it's quite challenging. It's quite challenging because if you look at the nature of the work and what teachers are doing to help develop the country, nobody can say that the role of the teacher is something that we can take for granted. Now, more importantly, if you go to the rural areas, the issue of the accommodating, the place where they have to be on the islands and all these aspects are quite challenging. And it is our hope and expectation that as we celebrate the teacher today, we will see how best we can motivate the teachers to stay in their classroom. Look, we train more teachers. You check the media landscape. Majority of the media men they are all teachers. Why are they running away from the classroom? Majority of the people in the media, journalists now, they are teachers. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
What I'm saying is that majority of media men today, the young ones, some of them are teachers, and yet they leave the profession and then run to other professions. And the question is, why are they running away?
Okay, so
because some aspects are quite challenging, and in terms of we cannot say that the motivation is out. I mean, currently, what we have now is, we can say that we are okay. No, we cannot say we are okay because there are pending issues that must all be resolved. Recently, we held a press conference to recall. It's not because of the challenges that the press conference was held, and currently the matter is before the Labour Committee. So we are counting on the media and counting on all of you that let us also, in our own interest, support them and encourage them. Because if you do not do that, look, I always make reference to the World Bank Country Human Index Capital Report 2018. That 56% of our human capital will go waste if nothing is done. This should be a wake-up call to all of us. Now, look, the only people that can make a difference in the lives of the 50% is the teacher.
Okay. So granted, I mean, the teachers are doing incredible work, but I also want to flip the question and ask that, do you think, Thomas, that the teachers are giving off their best? The kind of teachers that we have now, are they giving off their best? And I want to put it to you as a teacher. Yes. Do you think that the teacher that you had when you were going through school, you're a better teacher than that, or that teacher was better than you?
Hello. Look, let me put it within this context.
All right.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Let me put it within this context. Every employer has three main duties. Number one, you have to employ a competent staff. Number two is to provide all the logistics, the equipment, materials that will be needed to deliver the task. Then the last one is supervision.
All right.
And so once you employ a competent staff, If you do not provide the logistics, I can tell you, no matter how competent that particular person is, delivery will become a problem. Then the last one is that if once the logistics and all the equipment are provided, the issue of supervision ought to be done. So when even though I cannot say that we are all the things we are doing is without a challenge, we have. But the question is that the people who are supposed to go and supervise the work, let us also ask the needed resources. We provided for them to go and check. Let us go and check. So if these three things are done well, I'm telling you, all the issues, whether somebody is teaching well, somebody is not teaching well, will be a thing of the past. And I repeat, these three things must always be together. A competent staff, provision of logistics, provision of...
Hello, Thomas. It appears we have lost Thomas, but it's a very important conversation that needs to be had. I, for one, am one of those that believe that we can change and transform this country by having our teachers, taking very good care of our teachers. But I also feel that we can't just take good care of our teachers, especially when a lot of the teachers are not giving off their best, or a lot of the teachers don't have what it takes to be teaching the classroom.
I was just going to say that.
So, yes, we should take good care of the teachers. But let's take good care of...
Let's train our teachers well.
Yeah, let's take very good care of the very good teachers.
Exactly.
Then hopefully we can have the teachers that are not doing so well improve, get better, or we can also have people like Thomas was saying. Thomas is back on the line. So Thomas was saying that...
So I was saying that there are three main things here. In every organization, or the duty of employer, it's in three folds. You need a competent staff. You need you need to provide the materials, the logistics, and everything that will help the competent staff to deliver. Then the last one is the issue of supervision. Yes, so these three things must be in place. And I believe that if these three things are in place, I don't think that will have any problem. Yes, we cannot say that in every human institution, there will be challenges. And education, for that matter, is no exception. But if these three things are in place, we will be able to minimize all those challenges, if not to eradicate. Yeah.
Okay, so another part of the conversation, let's look at it as in the reward for the teacher and the quality of the teacher. Which one do you think should come first? Should we reward the teachers very well so that we can attract the best, or we should ensure that the teachers are good enough before we start giving them the reward?
Even the Bible tells us that the laborer is worthy of his wages. The Bible says that the laborer is worthy of his wages. Oh, yes. So we cannot separate the two.
All right.
We cannot separate the two. They always go together.
All right.
Yes. The two always will go together. Even the Bible are saying that the laborer is worthy of his wages. So once you have employed somebody to execute something for you, you need to compensate the person so that the person can deliver more for you. The Bible even acknowledges that.
All right. Thank you very much.
God bless
you very
you.
much, Thomas. Thomas
God bless
Musa
you.
is the General Secretary of the Ghana National Association of Teachers, and we wish you Happy Teachers Day. Not just you, Thomas, to all the teachers in this country and everyone who's teaching, not necessarily teaching in the classroom, but you're teaching and imparting to people, including the mothers who teach their children, and the fathers and everybody else. We wish you.
And Israel, who constantly gives us long lectures on this show as well. So, yeah. Anyways, the coverage of the Ghana Teacher Prize will be live on Joy Prime at 10 a.m. today. So do make a date so you can watch that. But we're coming up next. We're going to have a conversation with Spike A. Because we want to know more about that Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. What are we calling it?
Outage.
No, we need a more dramatic word.
Doom so.
Yeah, that's what it was, wasn't it? That's what we're going to do next time. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this.
Right, so we're going to have a quick conversation about what happened to the Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, that it went down for 6 hours. Kobe Spike Nkrumah is with our, well, he's the head of technology here at JoyNews, or the technology desk here at JoyNews, or hub at JoyNews, and he's also the host of Geek Squad. So when it happened, you guys put out a post on Facebook to let everybody else know. Well, it wasn't on Facebook.
Well, I was just going to say.
On Twitter to everybody, but what exactly happened?
So it's very technical what happened, but I have to give a bit of background to how the internet and how the websites that we access work. So basically like the internet is a network of little networks. And all these networks have to communicate. So take, for example, in your house, you have your laptop, you have your smartphone, you have your computer, your TV, your smart TV, and all these are on a network. And then they connect to a wider network, let's say in your apartment. And then your apartment connects to your area, and then your area connects to the whole nation, then connects to the global network. Good. Now, we have something called an autonomous system, which basically, what it means is that a big network comprising of smaller networks have to communicate with bigger networks. Yeah. And they have to send packages alongside each other. Now, all this is done by identifying each other with something we call the domain DNS, the domain name server. Now, if you enter facebook.com into your browser, it converts that into numbers. That's the IP address. Now, the IP address is a series of numbers divided by dots. That's how it identifies Facebook. And all these things are controlled by something called BGP. The Border Gateway Protocol. That's like a postal system for the internet. Okay. So it accepts packages and then looks at, okay, so where am I going to send these packages? What's the fastest route to sending it? So sometimes when you notice that your access is slower, if it's not your internet, it could be that the fast way or the highway is blocked, and so it's using a slower route. So it's going through, let's say, traffic or a longer route. Good. Now, you are sitting very close to me. Let's lock fists, like that. You're sitting next to me. So if there's a fourth person here, and you locked fists with that person, if Israel wanted to talk to that person, he has to go through me, you, and him. But if that person knocks fists with him, he can talk directly to him, right? If I want to talk to that person, I have to go through Israel. So every time we fist bump, we are communicating to each other that, oh, I have connection with Israel, you have connection with me. So I'm telling Israel, I have connection with you, and then you are telling me, and I'm telling him that, oh, she has connection with a fourth person. Now, what happens if my arms are amputated? Both of you can't talk to each other.
Yeah. Mm.
You can't reach that fourth person. That fourth person can reach all of you. He also can't reach me.
Okay.
I'm Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram. I've fallen out because my arms are amputated. That's, in simple terms, what happened.
What happened?
So Facebook was doing some configuration, and it ended up amputating their arms. So they essentially plucked themselves off the internet. That's why we tried to reach them, but they were nowhere to be found.
Why did it have to take 6 hours for them to come back?
So I gave this analogy, and I think it would work here too. Consider Facebook a 400-story building, and you have to do maintenance on the 369th floor. It's not easy. If you end up on the 369th floor, it's easy if you could take it out and everything, the building still works, and then work on that floor and put it back in.
You can't.
You can't. It could affect floors up, floors down. Imagine that you're using an elevator to go to the 400th floor and 369 goes off. You get stuck there. And then there's a fire on the stairwell, you're stuck there.
The guy who did it this morning, hey, I'm sure there's some board meeting happening, hot.
It's actually bound to happen. These things can happen. Yeah. I mean, if you are a programmer, you probably notice that sometimes you put a full stop somewhere it shouldn't be, and it messes up your whole program.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to quickly, thank you so much for coming. We're going to run away quickly because Maps Don't Lie is here to bring us the entertainment news. So much more coming up in the next 6 minutes before we're done. Don't go anywhere.